Have you ever wondered what it would be like to go deep into the rainforest and live in an Indian village that can only be reached by days of travel in dugout canoes? A place that is beyond roads, without electricity or plumbing, or even daily contact with the outside world. In 1995, I did just that. I arrived in a small Indian village named Las Marias in a remote corner of Honduras, Central America, after 2 days' travel in dugout canoes. As a young graduate student, I had an audacious idea. I was going to live in Las Marias for a full year, where I would climb the tallest trees in the rainforest, the ones that are called canopy emergence because they're so tall they stick out above the crowns of the surrounding trees. And from these high vantage points, I was going to study birds of prey because I would be able to see them flying through the forest and over the forest, track their movements, and do my research. As crazy as this idea sounds today, even back then it had a major flaw. I was unfamiliar with the technical aspects of climbing trees that could be 15 stories tall and whose lowest branches might be 70 to 80 feet above the ground. Despite getting a few lessons climbing cottonwood trees in Boise, Idaho, where I was going to school, when I got to the rainforest, it became painfully clear that I was underprepared. And so I learned as I went. And as I climbed 2 to 3 of these canopy emergent trees each day, something interesting happened. I entered into this thin envelope of total concentration, hyper-aware of my surroundings, of the tree trunk that's in front of me, and the rope and the harness that connect me to the tree, of the leaves and the branches as I'm climbing, and the bird sounds in the forest. But there was one thing that I noticed more than any other, and that was when I climbed into the top of the forest where the wind blew, there was this tangible feeling of suspense. And I would literally ask myself, time and again, what if I die here? Because when you willingly release yourself to that level of vulnerability, when you're climbing into the unknown and your very life depends on the tree, you enter into a state of intense focus where time slows to a crawl and every other thought or concern out of necessity for your survival fades away. What's more, as I got better at climbing trees, I climbed more and more difficult trees, pushing the envelope higher and higher, always in that state of intense focus. But as time passed, I began to sense new emotions that were also intense, and that was the feeling of achievement and of satisfaction. And it is this power to affect the very pace of time and grant us this superpower level of awareness and of joy that I have come to think of as the transformative power of climbing trees. Now, climbing trees must be addictive because after I got my master's degree, I felt like I hadn't had enough. I was yearning for more, and I decided to get a doctorate degree that would grant me another year climbing trees in the rainforest and studying birds. This time I had a family, and it meant that I needed to live and work in a forest that was closer to conveniences and a city, and as it turns out, closer to my friends, who started coming to me and asking me to take them to work so that they could experience this adventure climbing into the top of the rainforest. And that was when I began to notice that the power of trees was having an effect on other people and that it wasn't just something happening to me. Many years later, I began teaching biologists in Latin America how to climb trees. I wanted them to be able to shortcut the learning curve that I had gone through and start out by learning with the right equipment and the right methods so that they could get into the canopies of the forests where they live and make their own observations and their own discoveries and collect information vital to the conservation of these magical places. It's true in the strict sense of the word that we can call these trainings because we are imparting new skills and new knowledge, and we are changing their careers. But I will argue that a more fundamental and important change takes place when we put them up high in the forest into this zone that is unfamiliar and uncomfortable. We change their perspective on the natural world and on themselves. I want everyone to imagine for a moment what it is like to climb one of these tall trees in the rainforest. So imagine you are walking through the forest on your way to the tree and you are pumped up with excitement and this thrill of adventure until you arrive at the base of the tree and you look up there and there's a rope going 13 stories, 130 feet, and maybe you can't even see the top of the rope as it winds through all of the leaves and the branches, but it is enough for you to know that 130 feet is a lot higher than you thought it was and maybe more than you even bargained for. And the anxiety and the self-doubt and the fear creep in, but they are replaced by that sense of adventure, and you know that there's something waiting for you up there. You came for it and you're going to get it, and you get your courage together and you climb that rope. And long after your muscles are burning and after the sweat is pouring, when you crest through the final layer of leaves and you summit that tree, it is like watching a nature documentary on television, but it is so much more because it is you living in the moment with the tropical sun warm on your face, with the wind blowing on your skin. There are tropical birds of every imaginable color in the tree with you and in the forest below you. And it's like in that moment, you have climbed not only to the top of the world, but above the top of the world, where you have a view back down on the forest and on the old you and the new you, and you know that the next time you are handed what may seem like an insurmountable challenge, you will not only meet it head on, you will climb above, and you will crush it with self-determination and confidence because you already have. And that is the transformative power of climbing trees. Fortunately, you don't have to be a biologist and you don't have to live in Latin America to climb a tree. When I climb with people in the United States, I see the same transformation of emotions take place on their faces when a group of new climbers arrives at a tree that's dangling with ropes, and maybe the tree is only 60 feet tall instead of 160 feet, but there's that self-doubt and there's that anxiety. And I can see the look that says, I would be better off if I headed back to the car. But nobody wants to look like a chicken, and you know that there's something waiting for you in the tree, and you get it together and you climb. And once in the tree, the most magical things can happen. You might find yourself standing on a branch next to the tree trunk. And one step at a time, you walk away from the trunk until you find yourself standing on a branch that is too skinny for you ever to think of standing on or to even balance on. But you can do it because the rope is holding you. You can flip upside down, grab the rope in your feet, and hold out your arms. And people call that a bat hang. But you can never do those things on the ground. You can never experience those emotions, and you will never know how climbing a tree can release you from the normal physical limitations of being human until you do it. I have heard climbers say that they left the tree a better person than when they arrived. And I have heard climbers say that climbing that tree changed their perspective on life. A few months ago, I climbed with 6 boys and 2 adults in a tree in their neighborhood. The boys were all brothers and best friends. And on that glorious day, we filled that entire neighborhood with happy noise, with shouts and with taunts and with laughter. Some of the boys, like Grant and his dad, climbed that tree 3 times, going to heights of 50 feet. Grant is only 5 feet tall, and you can do the math. On that day, Grant climbed the equivalent of 30 Grants. But it was at the end of the last climb, when Grant and his dad touched down on the ground, that something really special happened. They named the tree Big Red. It's a red oak, and it is a really, really magnificent tree. So these boys, brothers and best friends, had just shared an experience like none other. But when they named the tree Big Red, went from being an inanimate object taken for granted in the backyard to one of the gang and one of the family. And I knew in that moment that climbing Big Red had shifted Grant's perspective on his world and on his place in it. And that is the whole point. Climbing a tree can be an inward journey to a whole other place beyond roads, deepening an awareness into the worlds that are around us and the worlds that are within us. Awareness is a first step towards appreciation, and appreciation can lead us towards acceptance and gratitude. If climbing a tree is a key to such a transformation, then I simply ask you this. The next chance that you get, grab your kids, or go take your parents, or go find some friends and climb a tree. Let time slow down, and let the awareness and the power of trees soak in. Thank you.